The lights above the stage blaze down on me, hot and relentless, as I stand alone behind the podium. Cameras snap like firecrackers, each flash carving my face into something confident, or at least, that's the illusion I hope to sell. This is it, the Grey media launch, the dream I've been building since I was 12. My chest rises and falls with the weight of the moment. I can feel my pulse in my ears. My eyes sweep over the glittering ballroom, catching on 5 empty chairs in the front row. Each one bears a name written in my neat handwriting. Mom, Dad, Everest. I'd reserved those seats anyway. Some naive part of me had believed this time would be different. Miss Grey. A reporter calls from the front, notebook ready. Who inspired you to start your company? The question lands like a stone in water, quiet at first, but rippling through everything inside me. My throat tightens. I reach for the glass of water on the podium, giving myself a heartbeat to breathe. 200 people watch me, investors, journalists, creators waiting for my answer. I set the glass down carefully. My fingers tremble against the crystal. Maybe. I begin, my voice softer than I intend. It came from knowing what it feels like to be forgotten. A hush spreads through the ballroom. Cameras click wildly, hungry for the moment my polished mask fractures. But I don't cry. I haven't cried for years. Not since I learned tears meant nothing in the Grey household. A memory flashes me, 12 years old, cross-legged on my bedroom floor with a plastic toy microphone clutched in my hands. I'd saved 3 weeks of allowance for that cheap thing. It didn't even plug into anything. But when I spoke into it, I imagined my voice carried across invisible airwaves, reaching people who actually wanted to listen. And now, in breaking news, I whispered to my audience of stuffed animals, Soraya Grey reports that dreams come true if you work hard enough. From the living room came the sound of cheering, not for me, but for Everest. Did you see that catch? That's my boy. Dad's booming voice shook the walls. That's a Grey man right there. Football highlights again, Everest sophomore. Year game replaying for the 100th time. I raised my little microphone, determined to finish my pretend broadcast. The door creaked open. Mom peeked in, finger to her lips. Honey, could you keep it down? Your brother's highlights are on, and your father's trying to focus. But I was just, I know, sweetheart. She smiled, that practiced, polite smile that never reached her eyes. Maybe later, okay. You know how important these game films are. The door closed softly. Later never came. It never did in our house. Everest's games, Everest's trophies, Everest's future. Those were the pillars of every Grey family conversation. When I was 14, I asked Dad why he'd skipped my speech competition. He ruffled my hair like I was still 5. A son carries the Grey name, Soraya. Your brother's under real pressure. You're the lucky one. Lucky. The word still burns as I stand under the ballroom lights 6 years after college, watching reporters jot down my quote about being forgotten. The irony isn't lost on me. After that night at 12, I learned to record in whispers, to dream quietly, to speak softly into that broken microphone long after it cracked, the letters SG still carved into its side. I imagined invisible listeners leaning in, eager to hear what I had to say. If I achieved enough, if I became exceptional enough, maybe even my family would have to notice me. I clung to that belief through childhood, through adolescence, through every quiet disappointment. I told myself that understanding their indifference made it hurt less. Being the daughter who understood became my identity, my silent duty. Senior year, college brochures cover the kitchen table like scattered pieces of a dream I'm not supposed to have. The Northwestern University pamphlet sits at the center, its broadcasting tower circled in red ink. Dad, I start carefully. I want to apply here. Their journalism program is the best in the country. He doesn't even look up from his coffee. That won't put food on the table, sweetheart. Try something practical. Business, maybe. Mom nods in agreement, her hand patting mine with absent reassurance. Your father's right. Communications and journalism degrees are more like. Hobbies, really. Pick something steady. Their words flatten me, but that night, when everyone's asleep, I fill out the application anyway. I get impartial scholarship. A week later, I watch from the driveway as Mom and Dad help Everest load boxes into their car. Arizona State, full ride. New luggage, new laptop, new everything. Dad hugs him tight. We'll contribute what we can, but with your scholarship, you won't need much. When it's my turn, I show them my acceptance letter and the remaining $20,000 I need to cover. Dad's smile fades. That's a lot of money for a degree that might not lead anywhere, Soraya. I end up at community college, working nights at a small coffee shop to save for better equipment, a microphone from a pawn shop, foam panels from a discount store. The night after registration, I sit cross-legged on my bed, testing sound levels. My voice sounds stronger now, older, not full of hope, full of resolve. If no one will listen to me, I whisper into the mic, I'll find the ones who will. 6 years and 50 million monthly listeners later, I'm standing on that launch stage, staring at those same empty seats. Every word I speak now was born in that tiny apartment studio. The soundproofing may have been cheap, but the silence it held was priceless, a sacred space where my voice mattered. They didn't come, I say under my breath, scanning the crowd of journalists and executives. But everyone else did. That night, the espresso machine hisses in the background of the cafe where I still pull shifts between recording sessions. The clock reads 2:17 a.m. 3 more hours before I can close up, go home, and edit the latest episode. Another all-nighter, gray. Marissa, the owner, leans on the counter, sorting through the day's tips. Her silver hair glints in the low light. 500,000 listeners don't record themselves. I say, smiling faintly. The words sound strange, like I still don't quite believe them. She whistles softly. 500,000, your folks must be proud. I freeze, the portafilter in my hand. They don't actually know. I admit quietly. Marissa frowns. You mean you haven't told them? I did, once. I tamped the coffee with practiced precision, sent them the link to an episode that hit the charts. Mom texted back 3 days later, "That's nice, honey. No mention of listening." She sets a hand on my shoulder. "They're missing out, kid." The bell above the door jingles as a customer walks in, ending the conversation, but not the ache behind it. 3 weeks later, I'm behind the wheel of my old sedan, the Arizona desert rolling past like an endless memory. Thanksgiving at the Grey household. Billboards along the highway show Everest's face, his jersey number 84, huge beside Arizona State football. When I pull into the driveway, the air already smells like roasted turkey and sage. The house buzzes with relatives' laughter. There she is. Uncle Richard bellows as I step inside. The career gal, still doing that little radio thing. Podcast, I correct. And yes, Dad emerges from the kitchen, beer in hand, giving my shoulder a hearty slap. She's got a few listeners now. Hobbies taking off, Soraya. A few listeners. Last week alone, over 500,000 downloads. Where's Mom? I ask. Upstairs. He says, "Go say hello." I climb the staircase, lined with framed photos of Everest game after game, trophy after trophy. My own graduation photo hangs crooked at the very end, smaller than the rest. I push open my old bedroom door and freeze. I stop cold in the doorway. My old room, the place where I built my earliest dreams, is gone. The twin bed, the pale blue walls, the shelves that once held my books and school trophies all replaced. Now, glass display cases line every wall, filled with polished footballs and glinting medals. Newspaper clippings from Everest's high school and college seasons cover every inch of space. My childhood has been completely erased. Mom stands in the center, dusting a large trophy with a soft cloth. "Oh, Soraya," she says, startled. "I didn't hear you come in." My gaze sweeps the room in disbelief. "What? What happened to my stuff?" She hesitates, her tone overly cheerful. With Everest possibly going pro, we needed somewhere to showcase his accomplishments properly. All your things are boxed up in the garage, nice and neat. I glance around again, the spelling bee certificates. My journalism awards, the framed newspaper cover I edited in college, gone. You could have asked first. I say quietly, "Well," she sighs, wiping her hands on her apron. "You're hardly ever home, always working at that coffee shop, recording your little stories. We thought you wouldn't mind." My throat tightens, little stories. The words echo inside me like a slap. "Come help with the stuffing, sweetheart." She adds quickly, "Everyone's waiting." Downstairs, Everest holds court in the living room, retelling plays and game. Day stories while cousins hang on every word. He barely acknowledges me beyond a nod before diving back into his latest glory tale. At dinner, Dad raises his glass to Everest. He declares proudly, with NFL scouts watching his every move. Finally, a true Grey legacy. Everyone cheers, glasses clinking. I sit quietly, my water untouched. Later, I slip away to the garage. Cardboard boxes marked Soraya are stacked haphazardly beside paint cans. I kneel down and open one. Inside lie my high school certificates, now bent and creased, and my old journals, their covers smudged with dust. My phone buzzes in my pocket. An email from Western Media Group subject. Distribution partnership opportunity. They're offering me a network deal, nationwide syndication, brand expansion, and the possibility of an office lease downtown. The one catch, they require a financial reference or co-signer. I exhale slowly, knowing who I'll have to ask. Dad. I begin later that night in the kitchen. He's loading the dishwasher, the television still echoing with post-game commentary. "I need to talk to you about something important." "Make it quick," he mutters, highlights coming on. I tell him about the deal, about the network's offer, and how it could change everything. His expression hardens. "So you want me to risk my credit for this podcast thing? It's not just a podcast, it's a full media brand now, 500,000 listeners every week. This is real, Dad." He shakes his head, shutting the dishwasher. "Your brother has NFL scouts at every game. That's real opportunity. This online hobby of yours, it's unstable. I'm not asking for money." I reply, my voice cracking, "Just your signature." And I'm saying no. When you have a real job with real prospects, we can talk. He turns back to the TV. Conversation over. That night I sit cross-legged on the cold floor of my old room, now a shrine to Everest's achievements, and open the voice recorder app on my phone. "This is what invisibility sounds like," I whisper. "This is what it feels like when the people who should see you most clearly don't see you at all. Tears blur my vision, but my voice remains calm. They'll never notice me unless I make them look." The next morning, the decision makes itself. I no longer wait for permission that will never come. I sit at my desk, the faint hum of the city beyond my apartment window, and open the Western Media contract. My name gleams alone on the signature line. For once, that feels right. I sign it. No co-signer, no backup plan, no family approval. Just me. The moment the pen lifts, I exhale not from relief, but from release. Days later, the world begins to open. Professor Williams, my old instructor from community college, calls after reading about my new deal in a local paper. I always knew you had something rare, Soraya. She says warmly, your voice carries truth, people, don't forget that. At the cafe, Marissa slides me a spare key. You can use the back room after hours, she says. Rent, free until your studio's ready. Consider it my investment. And then the email. Trent Daniels, a tech investor I've never met, writes, your storytelling moves people. I want to help build your network a place for women's voices to be heard. Every message, every offer, every opportunity arrives like proof that I was right to bet on myself. A few months later, I sign my first major advertising deal. The check clears before dawn. I sit surrounded by contracts, every line bearing my name alone. Across the room, on the corner of my desk, rests the broken toy microphone from my childhood. Its plastic surface is cracked, yellowed with age, but the tiny letters SG are still carved into its base. I trace them with my thumb, feeling a warmth I can't quite describe. The whispers of a little girl who once begged to be heard have become the foundation of an empire. For the first time, the silence in my chest feels like peace. They may never see me, but now the world does. A week later, I'm back at my parents' house. The champagne glasses glint beneath the chandelier, the sound of laughter echoing through the dining room. The Grey family's signature ritual, a toast for every milestone as long as it's Everest's. Dad stands tall, beaming with pride. To Everest, he announces, voice booming, NFL tryouts next month. Finally, a Grey making headlines. 28 pairs of eyes turn to my brother. He flashes that perfect smile, soaking in the applause. I lift my glass halfway, then lower it. My phone buzzes quietly in my pocket. My producer's text. 1 million monthly listeners. Congratulations. I smile faintly, the milestone slipping by unnoticed in a room too loud with someone else's triumph. Later, in the kitchen, I rinse plates while the others crowd around the TV, replaying Everest's highlights. Mom enters, placing a tray beside me. Honey, she says softly, would you mind not mentioning your work tonight? Your brother needs the spotlight right now. Scouts are still deciding. I stop mid. Motion, silverware clinking against porcelain. When exactly is it my turn, Mom? She sighs the same weary sound she's made my whole life. You know how your father feels about real careers versus hobbies. A hobby. I swallow the words burning behind my teeth. 1 million listeners. $200,000 in ad revenue. A staff of 6. Instead, I just say, right. The word tastes like ash. 2 weeks later, I sit at my desk, staring at the press release draft glowing on my laptop screen. Grey Media, my company, my creation. At 24, I now oversee 5 shows, a rented studio downtown, and 15 employees who trust my vision. The launch event is scheduled for Thursday at the Westbrook Hotel. 300 RSVPs, press coverage from every major digital outlet. All that's missing is my family. I tell myself I don't need them, not anymore, but a small, stubborn part of me still hopes they'll finally see me for who I've become. My fingers hover over the keyboard. I type Mom and Dad. I'm launching Grey Media next Thursday at 7 p.m. at the Westbrook Hotel Ballroom. It's the most important day of my life. Please come. Love, Soraya. I check my phone every hour for 6 days. The morning of the event, the message arrives. Sorry, honey. Everest's playoff game tonight. Your father says to tell you good luck with your thing. Love you. Your thing. I stare at the words until they blur, then set my phone down on the counter. The mirror across the room reflects a woman in a tailored gray suit, eyes lined, shoulders squared, voice rehearsed. I take one last deep breath, reapply my lipstick, and head out. The Westbrook Hotel ballroom sparkles with chandeliers and ambition. Every seat is filled except 5 in the front row, each bearing a white card. Mom, Dad, Everest, Aunt Patty, Uncle Frank. The irony isn't lost on me. The company I built to finally be heard begins with 5 silent witnesses who didn't show up. Thank you all for coming tonight. I begin. My voice sounds steady, even as my pulse thrums beneath my skin. Gray Meteor represents a new vision for digital storytelling, one that amplifies voices too often ignored. The speech flows effortlessly, years of quiet determination distilled into 10 minutes. Then, during the Q&A, a reporter from the L.A. Times raises his hand. Miss Gray, he asks, who inspired you to start your company? The question cuts through the air like glass. I glance at the empty chairs, the names staring back at me. Maybe, I say softly, it came from knowing what it feels like to be forgotten. The ballroom falls silent, cameras click. I can feel the story writing itself in real time. That night, back in my hotel room, I'm halfway through removing my heels when my phone buzzes. Dad, I hesitate, then answer. Are you trying to embarrass us? His voice is sharp, thunderous. Your little comment is all over Twitter. Your brother's teammates are asking questions. Which comment? I ask, even though I already know. That nonsense about being forgotten, like we haven't supported you your whole life. I sit on the edge of the bed, the city lights flickering across the carpet. If you feel embarrassed, maybe there's a reason. You think anyone cares about your little shows. He snaps. This isn't football, Soraya. This isn't real. Millions do. I reply, calm but cold. Just not you. For a moment, there's silence, the kind that feels final. Then he hangs up. By morning, the clip has gone viral. Female entrepreneur speaks her truth about family neglect, reads one headline. Thousands of comments flood in. Women thanking me. Daughters sharing their own stories. Inside my office, my business partners gather. Mark looks uneasy. The board's worried about how personal this has gotten. Before I can respond, Lucia cuts in. They're wrong. Your honesty is your strength, Soraya. The data proves it. And she's right. Subscriber numbers double overnight. 3 major networks reach out for partnership. The Women's Media Alliance invites me to keynote their next summit. For the first time, I realize something profound. My power didn't grow despite being forgotten. It grew because of it. 6 months later, my reflection stares back from the glossy pages of Forbes magazine. 30 under 30. There I am seated in my studio, surrounded by the same recording gear that once sat in a cramped apartment corner. The caption beneath my photo reads, Self-made media entrepreneur Soraya Grey is revolutionizing podcasting one voice at a time. My phone chimes beside me an email notification from Degree of Thought Mail. Calm subject, we saw your interview with Terry Gross. My pulse quickens. Soraya, your mother and I listened to your NPR interview yesterday. You spoke well. We're proud to see a Grey making such an impression in the business world. On a personal note, Everest's been going through a rough patch after getting cut from training camp. His son's private school tuition is due, and he could use some help, maybe around €3.00 a month until he gets back on his feet. Since you're doing so well now, remember, family takes care of family. For a brief, foolish moment, I'd thought it was recognition, but of course, it wasn't pride, it was a request. The warmth in my chest turns cold. The apartment is silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. I reread the email, each line digging a little deeper, every word proof of what I already know. They only reach out when they need something. I close my eyes, exhale slowly, and type, thank you for reaching out. I'm glad you enjoyed the interview. I'm working on several projects right now and building something meaningful. Wishing Everest the best. No mention of money. No offer of help. Just facts and boundaries. One deep breath. Click send. The reply comes the next morning. Did you see the part about Everest's situation? Then another and another. 5 messages by nightfall, each more desperate, less polished. I answer none of them. A week passes. The intercom on my office desk buzzes. Miss Grey. My assistant says, "Your brother is here." My stomach tightens. Send him in. Everest Grey fills the doorway the same way he always has, larger than life, confident, uninvited. But this time there's a weight in his stance. His designer jacket hangs looser, his voice a little frayed. Nice office. He says flatly, eyes darting to the skyline view. Must be nice. What can I do for you, Everest? I gesture toward the chair across from my desk, but he stays standing. Dad's emails, you've been ignoring them. I replied to the first one, not about what matters. He paces, stopping near the shelf where my childhood microphone sits in a glass case. You know I lost my coaching job. Things have been rough. I fold my hands on the desk. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry doesn't pay bills, he snaps. You've got millions coming in while my son eats instant noodles. What kind of aunt does that make you? The word aunt hits like a slap. His son, a boy I've met twice, both times ignored in favor of game talk with Dad. You haven't called me his aunt since he was born. I say quietly, this isn't about that. He growls, slamming a hand on my desk. It's about family, about helping each other when times get tough. I rise to my feet, steady but firm. When things were tough for me, where were you? When I was working nights, begging for a chance, where were any of you? He flinches. That's different. How? I ask, voice trembling with restrained fury. Because I'm a woman, because I'm the other child. His mouth opens, but no sound comes. I step closer, my voice calm, now dangerous in its clarity. I built this company while you had full scholarships and an entire family cheering for you. I did this alone. You can apologize, Everest, but don't you dare turn me into your emotional ATM. His face reddens. You've always been jealous. No, I whisper. I've always been invisible. I walk to the door and open it. We're done here. He glares, but when I meet his eyes, something in him falters, maybe for the first time. Still, he leaves without another word. That evening, my phone buzzes nonstop. Everest's post on social media has gone viral, a long caption about selfish sisters who forget where they came from. Dad calls 7 times. Mom leaves a voicemail, her tone trembling. Soraya, honey, family takes care of family. Your father and I gave you everything we could. Everest needs your help. I press delete. By morning, the damage control begins. A producer friend calls to say my father's been reaching out to advertisers, warning them about personal drama that might affect my reputation. I gather my team in the conference room. They're trying to pressure you through business channels. My operations lead says, sliding a printed list of inquiries across the table. How do you want us to handle it? My assistant asks. I glance around the room at the people who chose to stand beside me, not because of blood, but because of belief. Tell everyone the same thing. I say, Grey media speaks for itself, period. 3 days later, the intercom buzzes again. Miss Grey. My assistant says softly, your mother is on line 1. For a moment, I just stare at the blinking light on the phone. My finger trembles before I press it. Mom, Soraya. Her voice sounds smaller than I remember, fragile and unfamiliar. I wanted to call you myself, not through your father. That's a first, I reply quietly. A long sigh fills the line. I'm sorry we missed your launch. I should have been there. The words hang in the air, half an apology, half an excuse. I wait, but she doesn't continue. Your father doesn't know I'm calling. She adds quickly, her voice lowering to a whisper. Everest is angry you won't help. And you, I ask, I'm trying to understand, she says, the things you said in that interview about being forgotten. Was it really that bad, Soraya? Her question hits like a knife. That bad? 30 years of invisibility, reduced to a single, uncertain sentence. I swallow hard. Do you remember when I was 12, and you told me to be quiet because Dad and Everest were watching game highlights? That's just one time, she insists. It was every time. There's silence, a heavy, suffocating kind. When she finally speaks again, her tone has hardened. We did our best, your best, I say evenly, was reserved for Everest. My chest tightens. I can feel the tears pressing behind my eyes, but I won't let them win. I have a meeting, Mom. Good. Bye. Wait. But I hang up before she can finish. Moments later, there's a knock at my door. My assistant steps in. Your cousin Becky called, she says gently. She said Uncle Richard's been asking questions about what really happened. I nod, a humorless smile tugging at my lips. The Grey family image is cracking. It's strange the relief that follows. The truth finally leaking through the armor of reputation they spent decades polishing. That night, I stand by my apartment window, watching the city lights blur against the glass. My phone buzzes again, another text from Dad. This isn't how Greys behave. I type slowly, my fingers steady. Then I'll be a Grey on my own terms. Send, block. Then I block Mom. Then Everest. One by one. I close every digital door they ever used to reach me. The silence that follows isn't empty, it's sacred. For the first time in my life, peace has a sound. A week later, the quiet breaks with a single ping. New email from William Grey, subject, your nephew misses his aunt. My pulse quickens, but I don't open it right away. I lie back on the couch, staring at the ceiling, counting slow breaths like my therapist taught me. When the tightness in my chest eases, I finally click. Soraya, your mother and I were hoping you might join us for dinner next Sunday. Everest is having a hard time with the divorce. His son asks about you. Don't you think you should set a good example? Family takes care of family. You remember how we sacrificed for you. The laugh that escapes me sounds hollow in the quiet room. Sacrificed, as if letting me attend community college while buying Everest a new car was charity. I don't reply. By morning, there are 3 more emails. Mom's tone is softer, Gil. Trapped manipulation. Our little boy is struggling, Soraya. Dad's is firmer, almost demanding. Grey family values mean standing by each other. Don't forget where you came from. The last one is from Everest. He wants to meet his successful aunt. Photo attached. I stare at the image, a young boy holding a football, smiling shyly, and for a split second my heart wavers. But no, I know this game too well. Every olive branch comes tied to a hook. I close the email, delete, empty the trash folder, and breathe. The next morning, my phone rings during a production meeting. Terry Jennings, my lead interviewer, raises an eyebrow as I silence it. Family again. She asks once the others leave the room. I nod. They've discovered I have money. She tilts her head, thoughtful. You know that interview you gave last week about family estrangement? It's trending. People are connecting with your story. Her words echo after she's gone. My inbox confirms it, journalists asking questions, podcasts requesting interviews, articles with headlines like The Hidden Past of Grey Media's founder. One message stands out. Why does your family never appear at your events? I sit back in my chair, the question pulsing on the screen. I could tell the truth. I could finally expose them, the neglect, the favoritism, the decades of dismissal. But Terry's voice returns to me. Is that the voice you want the world to hear? That night, the question won't leave me alone. I sit at my desk long after midnight, the planner for next week's recordings open beside me. Tomorrow's slot is blank, reserved for special content. I stare at it for a long time, then power up my microphone. The red light flickers on steady, patient waiting. It's the only thing that's never failed me. This is a special episode. I begin, my voice calm but weighted. Names and identifying details have been changed to protect privacy. I pause, breathing deeply. The temptation to name them to make them feel what I've carried for years burns hot in my throat. But I resist. Today, I continue softly. I want to talk about what it means to be the daughter who was always loved last. My voice drops to a whisper, the one who learned to dream in silence because her voice was never worth hearing. For the next hour, I speak no notes, no edits, just truth. I tell the story of a 12-year-old girl with a toy microphone, of college applications no one believed in, of bedrooms turned into trophy displays and launch events filled with empty chairs. Not once do I say my father or my brother. They're simply a parent who couldn't see past gender expectations, and a sibling raised to believe the world owed him everything. The power lies not in naming them, but in the spaces between. When I finish, I sit still for a long time, listening to the quiet hum of the city beyond my window. Then, with one steady breath, I press publish. The file uploads under a simple title, The Voice They Ignored. By morning, the world is listening. 1 million downloads in the first 12 hours, 5 million by nightfall, 10 million by the second day. The messages flood in from women, daughters, even sons, all saying the same thing. I thought I was the only one. The first call comes from Dad. His voice is tight, furious. Take it down, he demands. People know you're talking about us. Am I? I reply calmly. I never mentioned anyone by name. Everyone will assume, only, I say slowly if it sounds familiar. The line goes silent and I let it stay that way. Mom calls next. Her voice trembles with tears. We've always loved you, Soraya. How could you say such things? I didn't say they were about you. I answer softly. Her silence says everything. Then Everest's text arrives, just one line. Real family doesn't air dirty laundry. I stare at it for a moment before locking my phone. I've spent my whole life keeping their secrets. Not anymore. By the end of the week, the headlines are everywhere. The untold story behind Grey Media's founder. America's forgotten daughters speak out. My inbox overflows with messages from women who sound like me, people who finally feel seen. For the first time, my company has a soul, one built not on numbers, but on truth. My team understands it too. They work with new fire, a shared purpose amplifying the voices of people who were silenced for too long. When I check the analytics dashboard that night, the episode's numbers outshine everything we've ever released. 10 million people have heard my story without a single name attached. And for the first time in my life, that's enough. A few days later, the ripple becomes a storm. National media outlets are dissecting my episode on morning shows and podcasts. Panelists debate its cultural significance. Pundits speculate which family I was describing, though I never said a name. Inside the Grey household, silence turns to chaos. Dad calls every media contact he's ever known. Mom sends carefully worded emails to old friends, insisting it's all exaggerated. Everest posts a long, furious message online about ungrateful siblings who betray family values. I don't read past the first sentence. Their noise no longer reaches me. At the office, my team stands behind me like a fortress. They're trying to spin this. Lucia, my creative director, says, dropping a printed list of gossip headlines on my desk. Do we respond? No. I say, we don't feed drama, we build impact. That afternoon, I'm invited to keynote at the Women's Media Alliance conference, the same stage where I once sat in the audience dreaming. Now my name is printed across the banner, Soraya Grey, the power of unheard voices. When I step onto that stage 2 weeks later, the applause feels endless. I speak about truth, about reclaiming silence and transforming it into sound. And when I finish, the crowd rises to its feet. I realize in that moment this was never about revenge. It was about liberation. That evening, I walk home through the Los Angeles twilight, the city lights shimmering like a living pulse. My phone buzzes again, dozens of unread texts. Dad, you think anyone believes that nonsense? Mom, you're tearing this family apart. Everest, I hope your fans are worth losing us. I delete them one by one, feeling lighter with each swipe. The next morning, my assistant knocks softly. Miss Grey, there's something you should see, she says, placing her tablet on my desk. Everest's Instagram post, the one attacking me, is now filled with comments. Not defending him, but defending me. Thousands of voices calling him out. People telling their own stories of being the forgotten child. A movement born without my permission, or maybe because of it. I scroll through, stunned. The words blur as tears fill my eyes. It isn't fame I'm feeling. It's recognition. Weeks pass, and the noise fades into background chatter. My company thrives. Our audience doubles again. New shows launching every month, all dedicated to voices once ignored. Then one quiet morning, as sunlight filters through my office window, a notification pops up. An unfamiliar email address, subject from Tyler Gray. My breath catches, Everest's son. Hi Aunt Soraya, I'm 12 now. I listened to your podcast about invisible daughters. I think I understand why you don't talk to my dad anymore. Our family treated you badly. I want to be different. Could we meet, just us, for a long time? I just stare at the screen. He's 12, the same age I was when I realized my voice didn't matter. I type back slowly. Sure, coffee shop near my office, tomorrow at 4. The next day, he sits across from me, all gangly limbs, nervous energy, and shy glances. He clutches a small box wrapped in comic book paper. Dad doesn't know I'm here. He blurts, Mom helped me find this. She said it might be yours. I peel back the wrapping carefully. Inside lies a cracked plastic microphone, yellowed with age. My initials still carved into the base SG. My breath catches. Where did you find this? Grandpa's garage. He says softly, Mom said it was yours from when you were little. 20 years collapse into one heartbeat. The smell of my childhood bedroom, the sound of my voice whispering into plastic, the ache of wanting to be heard. I listen to all your podcasts. Tyler continues. The one about invisible daughters made me cry. Dad never talks about you, but I hear him and Grandpa fighting sometimes. I think they know they were wrong. Tears sting my eyes, but I smile. Thank you for bringing this to me, Tyler. He hesitates, then asks, how did you know your voice mattered when nobody listened? I reach across the table, taking his hand. I didn't know. I whisper. I just knew I'd disappear completely if I stayed silent. He looks down, fidgeting. Dad wants me to play football, but I'd rather write stories. I laugh softly, then write them. You don't have to be like anyone else. Just tell the truth. That's what makes a story powerful. His grin is shy, but bright. Could you teach me how to record them someday? When you're ready, I promise. I'll show you everything. That night, I placed the broken toy microphone on my office shelf between my Peabody Award and the Forbes cover that started it all. Plastic beside crystal, the beginning beside the result. I power on my recorder, whispering into the quiet. Not every wound needs an apology to heal. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from the silence that shaped you. I pause, smiling through tears. And sometimes healing begins with the ones who watched and chose to be better. My phone buzzes again, a new voice message. Tyler's voice fills the room, bright and sure. I started recording my own stories, Aunt Soraya. I close my eyes, listening. The cycle is broken not with a scream, but with a whisper.